We left off with the Legislative Assembly. And this is really an important point in the revolution because the government starts to take place. These guys came together. They sat in separate sections of their meeting hall, and at least it's interesting to me, but I'm a nerd, so I like this kind of the terms right, left, and center come from, because that's where they sat, as you can see. Right, left, center. The monarchists sat on the right. The moderates were in the center. And the radicals, who supported revolution, who had a great distrust of Louis XVI, sat on the left. And there were two groups of them on the left. One of them was the Jacobins. They wanted an end to the French monarchy, and they wanted to create a French republic, and they were led by Robespierre, this guy. His biography, or a video link, whichever I end up deciding I like better, will be linked in your mod canvas. And Georges Danton, as well as Jean-Paul Marat. Important men. They are all worthy of further study. The one that we are going to focus on for the purposes of this class and our final exam, and the final exam I'm speaking of is for my class of 2024, in case I decide to recycle this video later on in my career. We'll be finding out more about Robespierre. So Marat didn't meet a great end. Now this painting, and full disclosure, I've told you before that I am no art expert. I am no aficionado. I'm really not, to be perfectly honest, all that interested. I am looking at something and telling you about this right now. So full disclosure, don't give me any credit because I don't deserve. What you're looking at, the title of the painting is called The Death of Marat. It is by Jacques-Louis David, and the dead guy is Marat. He was murdered. It was created in 1793 and is meant to be a, quote, powerful symbol of the passions, ideals, and consequences of revolution, and also meant to depict, well, Marat's murder. So, again, don't give me any credit for knowing that, because I'm all right, so Girondists, they wanted France to become involved. Big old war that would discredit the monarchy and extend the ideals of the revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity, and all that across the European continent. Now, a national convention was held, and the factions came together to try to sort this out, what they wanted to do and to do it. The Jacobins, as we had discussed a moment ago, were a political faction that wanted the king out. They were based in Paris. Their support came from the sans-culottes, and they wanted to adopt really extreme revolutionary measures to achieve their goals, and they saw Paris as the center of the revolution and where that was going to happen. They wanted a more centralized governance. Now, the Girondists, their power base was in the provinces, meaning, well, outside of Paris, outside of the big cities. They feared the influence of the sans-culottes. They feared the dominance of Paris in national politics and wanted a more federal form of government. And are unfamiliar with the term federalism. Federalism is the form of government that we employ in the United States, where there is a national government. In our case, in Washington, D.C., there are states, 50 of them. I hope I'm not breaking news there. And they share power. There are certain things that the national government can do that the states can't. Certain things that the states do that the national government can't. Powers that they share in common. That's federalism. That's what this faction wanted. So the royal family attempts to escape. It was a smart idea on their part because, as we know from history, they did not meet a great end. Didn't work too well. They were found out. They were returned. And we know that at least, so in August 1791, Austria and Prussia, two great European powers at the time, they issue the declarations of Pillnitz, and there it demands the restoration of absolutism in France. Austria, if you remember, was where Marie Antoinette was from. So the family had an interest in certainly seeing that she and her children, maybe not Louis, who knows how the family relation got out alive, made it into power more ideally. Restoring the French monarchy, they said in this declaration, is in the common interest to all sovereigns in Europe. Now, why is that? If the French show that they can overthrow their sovereign, Louis XVI, and they can make a government, a country, well, all the other nations in Europe would see that maybe the aristocracy, the nobility, the royals weren't all that necessary. So the Legislative Assembly in April 1792 declares war on Austria and Prussia. This is called the War of Austria and Prussia against. Through this, you'll see there's a second coalition, and so on, which is basically everybody ganging and not necessarily being successful, especially when Napoleon comes onto the scene. The coalition forces in the summer of 1792 advance on Paris. France wasn't quite prepared for the war. Still busy trying to figure out how they were going to govern themselves. The Duke of Brunswick threatens to destroy Paris if the royal family was harmed. He issues that declaration in the Brunswick Manifesto. The Duke gets the authority to do this because he is the commander of the Allied army. The manifesto, in addition to threatening to destroy Paris if the royal family was harmed, as it says right there, the carrot to that stick is a prompt pillage and harm French civilians if they leave the royal family alone. So the French are worried about defeat at the hands of the Duke of Brunswick's army. Fresh troops get rushed to Paris. They're singing the Marseillaise along the way. And that's still the anthem of France. I'm not going to risk a YouTube copyright strike. Please just YouTube it on your own. They wish to save France from tyranny. And they succeed because, well, they're able to stop the Duke of Brunswick. So you got to wonder, how great was the army? So the radicals called the sans-culottes, which means without breeches, they take control of the Paris Commune, which was the city government of Paris. And the British, probably the more conservative faction, I would guess, meaning supporters of the British monarchy, the British aristocracy, the establishment. The cartoonist, my assumption, would probably have been a member of that political faction of British society, would not have depicted these guys particularly well. As you can see, this old woman back here is cooking a baby. These guys, he's eating an eyeball. This lady's eating this man's heart. Not making them look particularly flattering. So the Commune intimidated the Legislative Assembly into deposing Louis XVI. They called for a new, more democratic national convention. So the Commune storms the Tuileries Palace, where the royal family was staying, and that was a pretty big battle. The Royalists didn't really have a chance. It was about 20,000 on the Republican side to 1,200 fighting for Louis XVI. And the Royalists obviously won. So convinced that the Royalists were going to betray the revolution, mobs of sans-culottes, they execute thousands of priests, bourgeois, and nobles. And the September massacres start, which marked the beginning of a second French Revolution dominated by the radical faction, the political left. And we will pick up here in part 4.